it makes you ponder about the reason for dreams, why we dream, what happens if we don't have those dreams.
I just want world peace. This is a very Miss Universe kind of question. Hey there! Welcome to the Gleeful Talkshow in collaboration with the Nerdy Fans Podcast. And I'd like to welcome back my co-host Ray from the Nerdy Fans Podcast. Hi, Ray.
Hi, Glee. Excited to be back. And boy, do we have a good episode
Yes,
today.
I'm very excited. And it's especially that it's actually a request from one of our listeners in the Gleeful Talk Show. So it's quite related to the Nerdy Fans Podcast type of topic. That's why it would be great to have you together with me on this episode.
Of course. So happy to be here. And can you tell us what the topic is for today?
Yes, but before we dig right in, I'd like to invite our Zesties and Nerdy Fans to follow our socials. That's at Gleeful Talk Show and at the Nerdy Fans Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Visit also our website. That's nerdyfanspodcast.com and gleefultalkshow.com. So, Ray, the episode for today is The Sandman that's currently streaming on Netflix. So before we deep dive about this, have you heard about this before in the comic world or wherever?
Actually, yes. I have heard that Neil Gaiman was the author. So when I saw that it was coming out on Netflix, I was like, oh, curious. I'm pretty sure I might have picked up perhaps a comic panel of the Sandman years ago. I do recall that. But as for its story, I just remember it was unique. And then, you know how it is with libraries sometimes in the Philippines, it's not always up to date. So I wasn't able to read much more. And I'm pretty sure when I tried to find it again, it disappeared somewhere in the back of the library.
Oh, this one I haven't really heard because I'm not really the type of comic book person American side, so I was more on manga. And so yes, for our Zesties and Nerdy Fans, The Sandman it's written by Neil Gaiman. So it follows the story of Morpheus, the King of Dreams, which is the titular character of The Sandman, and he is a member of the Endless family. So they are 7 of them, I believe. 7 endless members of the family, including destiny, death, dream, destruction, desire, despair, and delirium. So the episode starts off with the Sandman being captured in the occult ritual in 1916, and he was held captive for 106 years. And then he escapes and sets out to restore the order of his realm. So that's why, Ray, when it started, it was really, I couldn't get through. And then only after he escaped was that it became a bit more interesting. And funny enough, and I was also pleasantly surprised that it's set in the DC universe, which is the home of Batman and Superman, but he is not your average superhero. So just a trivia here, Neil Gaiman was inspired by Roger Zelazny's book entitled Lord of Light, where it was based on a science fictional gods who feels like superheroes. So, Ray, what did you think when you first watched the first few episodes?
I honestly felt that it was kind of a unique storytelling. Because how often do you really get that story where it was, where essentially a god is being trapped? And yes, I can understand from your point of view how it might have been dragging for the first few episodes. I suppose it's just me. I just like hearing stories, which is why I felt like giving it a chance. There were parts that did drag, but then I was like, oh, this is unique. This is somebody who is practically the king of dreams. And then if you listen to those few episodes, you notice that because he was gone from his realm, people's dreams started going awry, and there were even people who couldn't wake up. Right. So in many ways, I wouldn't say hooked. I was intrigued. And then just like you, when he escaped, when the story started picking pace, that's when I really got hooked into it then, right? And yeah, I know from many people's point of view, it's surprising that it's actually DC. But if you actually listen to, or if you see some of the characters, you'd notice that you've got people like, was it Joanne Constantine that was there? And immediately you know that this is the Sandman's version of John Constantine from the actual DC comics. So it's great. It's great having to see those pieces together. And quite honestly, this was an amazing series for me. On your case, what do you think about
that? Well. As you know, and I've mentioned to you before that it was really hard for me to get through even the first episode. And I felt it was really weird when he came out really skinny. So I don't know, maybe it's a god because this is a gothic themed god universe or something like that. So yeah. He was really skinny and really pale. Like, okay, what? Because I really didn't have any expectations about this. So like, oh, why? Like, why? This is like weird. And like he was naked for the whole of the first episode. Like, where is this going?
Yeah. Maybe it's because, and this is just my thought, maybe it's because we are so used to how superheroes or main characters in general are portrayed that we already have this set expectations. More often than not, we wouldn't consider somebody who looks like Dream to be like superhero material. We're used to Chris Evans. We're used to Chris Hemsworth, I would say, right? And in fact, if you look at, just to skip a little bit, if you look at his brother, Desire, who most people, guys most especially, and let's be honest with that, would prefer probably somebody along the lines of Evergreen or any other model, right? But Desire is presented as this androgynous being that's clearly played by a male actor. And then when you start listening to it and when you start not just giving it a chance, digesting the story, you'd understand and you'd appreciate the artistic interpretation of the producers. And then it's when you open up your mind to how the story is being told. So that's the part I do like about it. And that's also why I think we find it initially strange that this is how Dream looks like. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree with you, and it's a very refreshing take of the different characters and different representations of God, and the characters themselves, like even the non-hero like ones, like I don't know, like if John Constantine, I really haven't read the comics, but she was like gender fluid. There's a whole bunch of there's really a whole bunch of characters which are super interesting, and I really felt that the casting was impeccable. Who is it? The Lucifer Morningstar. That was really refreshing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, Lucifer is one of my favorite characters there. Definitely, especially her portrayal. And I would say, and to jump the gun a bit here, her episodes were my favorites, especially when she battled Dream, because it's a unique battle and it makes you wonder, maybe that's how gods really fight. Not the flashy lightning, not the fire and brimstone. Maybe it's using creation itself, creating themselves to be whatever they believe, and seeing how their godly counterparts respond. Maybe that's my favorite. Their episodes are my favorite. Now, there are others, because here's the thing, and we have to admit, most guys who watch this series find that episode as their favorite as well. I would think so. The memes, the stuff that you see reviewed on YouTube, that's the episode. What about you? Do you agree, or do you have your own personal favorite?
Yes, I have a lot of things to say about this. But before we deep dive, by the way, Zesties and nerdy fans, there will be some spoilers along the way because it's really hard to review a very good season of a show without spilling some tea and spoilers.
Spilling some of the beans.
So just a spoiler alert there. I agree with that. Was again another refreshing take of a battle scene. And at first, again, because it was really like it was not the usual, like, oh, how will they win? And I was so annoyed by how he, like, I kind of get that he wants to battle Lucifer with good and, but she or they, sorry if I'm not doing, okay, maybe they. So they are not really, because they are bad. So you need to counter them with good. But it didn't really affect her that much in the very first few sequences. So like, why is he like giving that greenery, that, like life, like, this, I kind of get where they are going for, but it's still like I really felt like, oh, maybe he will lose the battle, but at the back of my head, he won't lose the battle. But if you know what I mean.
Yep, I honestly do. And let's look at it. And I suppose I have to thank the YouTube comment section for this. But they kind of explained why it went that way. Because let's look at, again, guys, spoilers. Let's look at Dream's final transformation, hope. All of us, I'm sure all of us could think of so many things that could counteract hope. Despair being one of them, right? But the way people explain is that you actually have to believe in that, in defeating your opponent through your answer for it to actually take any real effect. Now, had Lucifer said despair and she believed in it, then it counters everything that she has hoped for. And if you listen to the episodes, you know her ultimate goal is to conquer the Silver City, which is essentially heaven. So
Silver City is heaven.
If she stops hoping, So if she stops hoping, if she gives into despair just to beat Dream, then she acknowledges that she cannot take heaven. So that's how Dream beat her. That's why Dream said, well, what do you believe in that can really defeat hope? And she cannot accept despair. She can't, because she herself, Lucifer, had hope. What do you think of that?
That makes sense. That makes sense. Really, really. Now it makes sense to me. To me, the hope kind of like made sense. But yeah, then with that explanation, it elevated how I understood the sequence. So
thank you, YouTube.
Thank you, YouTube commenters, are our favorite characters in the interwebs. And I wanted to really give kudos to the casting again, because, and also the creativity, as you mentioned, because there was drag, as you can see there, which was like, oh, I haven't seen drag in any of like these types of fantasy themes. So it's really, really good.
Right. And if you notice, Neil Gaiman's stories, well, from what I've heard and what I can vaguely recall, it's never the standard template that we're used to. There's always something that his style is always something refreshing, something new, something you don't always expect, I would say. Like, there is that pacing that initially we might consider dragging, but if we just took that leap of faith and say, oh, you know what, let's give this a chance because it might be interesting, it actually surprises us. And let's go back a few episodes, maybe the first one or the first Nerdy Fans or Gleeful Talkshow episode, wherein we talked about Trece. Neil Gaiman is actually a fan.
Oh.
From what I recall, I think Trece won one of the Neil Gaiman awards. And if you look at the Trece episodes, although there's action and whatnot, the comics is really a lot of story-based or storytelling, rather than just solely focusing on action. And that's what Sandman gives us. There is some action. There is Joanne Constantine's episodes. But then there's always that beautiful story and how it's being told. And it makes us think differently about the world. But let me ask you, in, let's say, episode 6, there was talk about that friend of Dreams, that immortal, right? He was the one, again, spoilers, guys. There's a character there who wished for immortality. And that was around the 1300s. So Dream and Death basically granted that to him. The guy does not die. And Dream's expectation was, this guy will be tired of life, right? So, and that actually fits in the mold of what many of our church leaders, many of our society actually teaches us, that immortality is actually a curse because we lose our loved ones. As the story goes on, this guy does experience those losses, those despairs, but he never tired of immortality. So it makes us think, again, wouldn't it be great to be able to see the future unfold for all of us, right? And that's how Neil Gaiman thinks. What do you think about that?
That's a fair point. For me, the guy was a bit materialistic, and he was driven by capitalism, and that was my interpretation of it. That's why he wants to live.
Oh yeah,
like it kind of reminds me of Elon Musk for some reason. so
yeah. Yep, I totally get it. And maybe some of us, I'm not trying to be mean here, but there are some people that we don't want to live forever. But then it also leaves us to question, if we are so against the idea of immortality, then why do we spend so much on trying to extend our own lives? Back in that 13th century, 14th century, you were probably considered old by the age of 40. Like, you are in your last legs, literally. But now, it's unusual to reach 100, but it's not really uncommon. There are people who still do. And almost a few centuries ago, that was nearly impossible. So again, leaves us that question. If immortality was so much of a curse, why do we want to keep extending our lives to the point of immortality, right? And these are the kinds of questions that the Sandman series gives you, among other things, I'm sure.
And thank you for raising that, because that's what's also one of my takeaways, how he presented whether the author or the creators of the show or both. It was a very poetic and deep meaning of dream itself or life itself.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
Exactly. And, again, that's a really great word to describe it. It's very poetic, right? The way you view dreams, the way dreams have an effect on us, really, because the way, especially when Morpheus was in hell, he was like, everybody dreams, including demons. You, Lucifer, yeah, they had dreams. Again, and Lucifer's dream is to take the Silver City from God, I believe. So these are things that make you wonder, if we as humans didn't have dreams, what would we be really? And to achieve these dreams, don't we try to go into the extreme ideas? Immortality being one of them, I would say. So again, this series, it's more than just a fun watch. For me, it really makes you ponder, I wouldn't say think, ponder about life and what it means to go on further. Right?
Yes, that's a very, very good commentary there, and I totally agree. Let's scale back to the surface now in terms of the actors.
Yep.
So I was also pleasantly surprised that it's really a star-studded cast. I didn't know who Tom Sturridge is. Sorry, but how he acted the character, he really embodied the gothic character of Dream.
Yes.
And I don't know, I haven't watched any of his interviews, but really, does he really have that kind of voice, like very husky and
To be fair, I have not seen any of his films or shows or even an interview of him. But here's what I read about Desire's actor when asked about Tom Sturridge. So Desire's partner, when both of them were watching the episode, were like, "Go on, Dream, kiss him," and he was like, "That's my brother. Don't do that." And he kind of explained that it's just that Tom has appeal with everyone. That's just how it is.
Okay, because he is Desire.
Right. Yep, he is Desire, and Dream is Dream. But if we're talking about characters, and maybe I'm just biased, but Charles Dance.
Who is that?
Tywin Lannister. The Magus. Oh, come on. So
I forgot the name, but I just know it, Tywin. Yep. And when that's what also has drawn me to the first episode. Like, oh, Tywin. Yep. Tywin is there. He commands the room wherever he is.
Yep. He is just amazing. We could say almost any role that he portrays it perfectly. I mean, and a few episodes back, we had The Witcher. Just to let you know, Charles Dance was the voice of Emperor Emir in the video games, actually. So This is a multi-talented man,
Wow.
and he embodies his character so well. So I would say that even if he was only there for a few episodes, he practically he stole those episodes. He's just that
Yeah.
good
Yeah,
for me.
yeah, totally. So we are a big fan of his. And speaking of voice acting, did you know that Mark Hamill was the voice actor
Uh,
for Mervyn the Pumpkinhead?
yeah, so I didn't know that until I was digging around, and I really wouldn't notice that it was Mark Hamill. Again, Mark Hamill is one of those guys that's ultra talented, so famous in the geek and nerd community that, whatever he sinks his teeth in, somehow he can find a way to make it work. He's Luke Skywalker, he's Joker, and he's this pumpkin. And I think in an episode of that crime, I forgot the name of that crime series, it's at the top of my head, he was a villain, a mass murderer. I was like, man, Mark Hamill is our king.
Yes, yes. I also like you. I didn't really realize that it was his voice, but
Yep.
I kind of have a feeling that it's voiced by a famous actor. Just how the
Mm.
character of the pumpkin was like when he's there, he's really like kind of like not just a janitor of the dreaming, but he is like
Yeah.
somewhat a famous character. But then I realized that it's really
Yep.
Mark Hamill, and people noticed. I mean, maybe the big fans of Star Wars noticed that
Yeah.
he is the voice.
I didn't.
I did it as well. But yes, that was really another star-studded moment. And of course,
Yep.
Lucifer, Gwendolyn Christie. This one, I gotta say, yeah, I've gotta say this. Sorry for the fans, but I didn't like her take on Lucifer at all. Like, what are your thoughts?
Actually, I would say that she worked. All right. Maybe I'm just a good guy, but again, we have this perception of what our characters must look like, right? That they must be this beautiful. They must be this good, right? But then Gwendolyn Christie was able to act as the Lord of Hell quite
I
exceptionally.
still felt she was
And people,
Brienne of
yes,
Tarth, though. That's why. That's what I felt.
yeah,
So anyway, go on.
I suppose. I know. I mean, for us, it's like, yeah, that's unusual. But then again, for me, this is a new character. I can accept that. I can have a look at that. And yes, we might have our thoughts because we know, and I think even Dream mentioned it, that Lucifer Morningstar was the most beautiful of, I think, God's creation as a description. And many people might not share that thought looking at
I'm not
Gwendolyn
talking
Christie.
about physical
But
things. This is
yeah.
because of Brienne.
Oh, I know.
Okay, go on.
I know. But again, let's have a look at perception. That changes a lot. And these beings are immortal, all powerful, all consuming, that they can take whatever form they want, I'm sure. Proof? When that prisoner in hell who used to be Dream's lover talked to him, you saw that Dream took a different form. There was something familiar to that girl. So maybe this is Lucifer that Dream sees it, how we see it. But then it also leaves a question. When Lucifer wants to show us show himself or herself to us, how would she look? And I really suspect that the Lord of Hell won't present herself like that. We would be presented with God's most beautiful creation, twisted. That's what I think. And that's why I think Gwendolyn Christie, who presented herself as the Lord of Hell, did it phenomenal.
And what I can say also with this show, aside from the casting and everything, the costume is also really good. How there was an episode where they traveled, that I think episode 6, the immortality guy, how they met every 100 years, and the hairstyle changed.
Yes.
And the hairstyle that's really in the costume, of course. So that was really interesting.
Yep.
But again, another thing, just because I want to nitpick, this isn't really major. But again, with Lucifer's, I didn't like their wings. It's like a bat-like.
I was gonna say that because maybe it's just me. Her wings did look kind of fake.
Yeah, and
I just think so.
It's not, I don't know if it was a costume designer, maybe, I don't know, but all others were really good, like all other costumes.
Yep.
But it's just the wings
Yep.
because in the episode, Dream was talking about like, Lucifer came from heaven and fell down, blah, blah, blah. But, and then so the wings, I feel, should be like angel-like. But again, the perception.
Yeah, again, the perception. But to be fair, we also need to ask, do we really know how angels look like? But then I also get where you're coming from. It might have worked, maybe, better that it was angel-like, maybe black,
Yeah,
like
black
a lot of the depiction.
whatever.
Yep. But then we also, again, we also need to ask, if the producers did that, wouldn't it be too predictable for a show like this? Right?
But they shouldn't also try to debate here. They shouldn't also like we'll do it differently just for the sake of being different, So, but anyway, but I feel like the wings should be okay. Let's say beautiful, but I don't know what beautiful.
Yep.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Maybe others like that wings, but anyway.
True.
Another thing I wanted to comment on is visual effects. What do you think?
Okay.
We have
visual effects. To be honest, I kind of like the visual effects, especially in Dream's realm. Maybe I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but it felt, in many ways, it did feel real. It was beautiful, right? The way they portrayed hell and other things, it was also great. To be fair, I don't have any major gripe about it, except maybe how I felt that Lucifer's wings looked fake. That's just it. Really.
Well, I'm in the same boat as you. So the visual effects also was stunning. It was well done, well made. And for a series like this, so I felt that it was like a movie, like full of 11 episodes, And this is highly in contrast. True. I know people might think like I'm just really nitpicking. To me, I can compare that House of the Dragon visual effects isn't as good as this one. That's what I felt in the first 2 episodes of House of the Dragon. So hopefully it will improve. It's not really bad. Maybe I was just expecting more from it. And with Sandman, the effects were really, really good, and the costume design, etc.
Yep.
So
it was. And again, there's that question, right? Our expectations are wanting for more. And it's not really surprising. In this modern world of ours, we expect more. We want more. And if we get disappointed by a show that we have such high expectations of because we have our perception of how it should be, then maybe to some degree it's justified. It doesn't change the fact that we still need to give shows like House of the Dragon a chance. And for those who were bored with the first few episodes of Sandman, give it a chance and you would be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, totally agree. And I am living proof of that.
Yes. Indeed.
And also one of the many things that made me really interested in this realm of fantasy series was that it's all encompassing. So it blends like horror, fantasy, mythology, and history as well. So I was really not surprised, but when the immortality episode, William Shakespeare was there.
Yep. William Shakespeare, right? Yep, that's how he was there. Yep, so it's fun. I would say that they included that. And, a lot of stories do that. Certainly, if you're going to read comic books, for example, I'm sure Constantine, they have a bit of history that's also intertwined in it. And again, it's fun and that's what I like about fiction. That's what I like about storytelling in this kind of medium, because the stories are for you to make, for you to craft, right? And, the possibilities are endless. And Sandman, DC Comics, Marvel Comics, they're very good at that, right? Or historically there were. Right now, people might have a different opinion, but I feel they've been good at that. And to deviate a bit, if you're talking about taking from history, then molding it into your own to say your own stories, look at Marvel's mother company, Disney. The masterpieces that we grew up with, from Snow White to Sleeping Beauty to Pocahontas, all based of historical stories, of course, a lot of them fiction, but how they ended up is usually a tragedy, not the happily ever after that we know, right? And comics like Sandman or shows like Sandman do that. They get elements that they feel from history, maybe, that could be molded into something that could do well for their storytelling and give it to us as a gift. And I love that. I love that about this medium.
Yes, yes, totally agree. And I also like that they touched on that Greek mythology part, I think the last few episodes. And there was another refreshing take on an episode, the last episode, episode 11, which 1,000 Cats or something. It started with a...
Okay.
It started with a... Have you seen that yet?
Unfortunately,
okay,
I have
I will not spoil you.
I have read
I will
a bit
not
about
spoil you then. But it was a refreshing take. If it's a fantasy, like you will just see that those characters, but how they injected a different type of creative work in it is also also really, really good. And it's unusual in that area.
Yep. So again, that's something that I look forward to seeing. So just a backgrounder for our viewers. Somehow I missed episode 11 because it came out weeks after episode 10. And I didn't know that actually came out because I was focusing on something else. But I have read a bit about it and I am interested. And hearing the premise of it, right, both from you and from what I have also read a bit on, I think it is a wonderful twist of things.
Yes, yes. And again, I keep saying this, but it makes you ponder about life, about humanity, and all these things that we are living in.
Well, I suppose one thing that we could say is that when you watch this show, again, it makes you ponder about the reason for dreams, why we dream, what happens if we don't have those dreams, right? I mean, they're right. Dreams push us forward. Dreams make us hope, right? It's what keeps us waking up the next day and hoping for the best, hoping for a better future, because that is our dream. Now, both you and I are overseas Filipinos. Lee and I are from the Philippines. We went to another country looking for better opportunities. That was our dream. A lot of them have been achieved, but then I'm sure you and I have more plans, right? So again, this show made us ponder that even more, made me wonder what comes after the dreams that we achieve, right? And if we did achieve everything, wouldn't life be empty? Wouldn't it be an empty existence? I mean, that's my thought. I'm not sure about you.
Oh, well, yes, I agree with you on that. And it just made me remember something that about the endless family. So the 7 family members that I mentioned earlier. So one of the episodes were mentioning something about they exist because the humans believe that they exist. So
Yes.
so like dreams and of course death. And there was also an episode about death, that's why humans fear it so much. So it was really, really good. And the Dream King was saying that he served the human. It's not that the humans serve them. And in other ways, even that the humans are the one manipulating them. So that's something to ponder on as well. So you can, as a human, you have the choice to change your mind, change your, let's say you are in despair. So you can manipulate what you are thinking because you have that choice, free will.
Yep. And again, discussing any of that further would definitely result into a long philosophical debate. So, because guys, I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably proud nerds and geeks yourselves, and you have asked these questions. And I'm pretty sure you have your own opinions as well about immortality, about dreams, about desire itself, about who serves who. Is it the all-powerful gods, or is it the people who pray to these gods? Again, there are some stories wherein gods are only as powerful as the number of people who are praying to them. I think that's the series American Gods.
Which is my new Simon as
cases. I should really give that a try. But yeah, that's basically the concept. And again, discussing that further would cause a long-winded philosophical debate without any decisive
Yes,
conclusion.
as per usual with how philosophy is. So, Ray, I have a question for you. Before we go to the ratings, how you want to rate this show, if you could share what to us that's something that is easily shared. So, can you tell us about what your dream is for yourself or for the world or for whatever?
Oh my God. So, I think I might have spoken about it, but my dream right now, immediate dream, I would say, is my permanent residency in 2 years and eventual citizenship here in New Zealand. That's definitely a dream. Beyond that, I just want to focus on living a fair and happy life that's fruitful, be it a single one or with somebody. That how that plays out no longer matters to me. I just want it to mean well. Whether I'll be remembered or not is not a concern. My dream is just that happiness, that fulfillment. And I find it in my career. I find it with people. I find it with friends like you. And definitely I find it with the nephew that I've never met yet, which is my brother's son. And I'm looking forward to the day. I suppose if there's any dream that I want to come true as soon as possible, it's the day I get to hold my nephew. And that's worth seeing tomorrow.
Wow. Wow. Nice, Ray. Nice.
And what about you?
I think aside from my personal endeavor, I just want world peace. This is a very Miss Universe kind of question. But I just want world peace so that the prices of the commodity will go down. Like everything, right?
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I'd want that too.
But I mean, I have a similar personal endeavor or dreams as what you currently have. But just to add to that, yes, world peace, so that prices will go lower. We can just go safe anywhere else. So yeah, how do you want to rate this show? Out of 10.
Out of 10? 9. 9. Seriously, 9. I love the story. I love the characters. I love the portrayal. And the things that I don't like about it, they're just, again, like you, it's just nitpicking. Like the wings and whatnot. And how we might want to perceive things to be, but 9 out of 10. In fact, I'd say 9.5 out of 10. And I wouldn't question you if you said 9.9. That's how much I like this show, to be honest. It's really
that good. You just need to really get through. I think first 4 episodes, that was really, really hard, guys. Really, really hard. Because that's like 4 hours of your life that you need to go through. But we assure you, it's really worth it.
It is worth it. Definitely worth a watch. If you haven't seen it, go give it a watch. I'm not going to diss on the first few episodes because personally, I understand why it's dragging to most people, but I liked it. But for those of you who are not used to that type of storytelling, soldier on. It gets better. So much better. And there's a reason why it became number 1 on Netflix globally. That's just my take.
Wow. And there's another, did you know, kind of trivia also that I got from my research before we end. So actually, the efforts to make this as a movie started in the 1990s. Did you know that?
That I didn't know. Not surprised, but
and there were
were
creative differences, with the creators. And good thing that turned out to be a good thing then, because now they made it as a series and on Netflix, like a high budget type of series. So it's good for all.
Yep, good for all. And if I am going to pose a question to our listeners and watchers today, to segue from that, is that, in this modern era with stories so beautiful like Sandman and the other stuff that we nerds love to watch and read, do you think movies or the concept of movies should change and just focus more on the stories where you will have that fluidity and that flexibility to craft the stories that you want to say? Imagine that. Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings as a series. The original ones. Think about it.
Yes.
Dear listeners.
And Ray, before we end, please invite our listeners to our podcast.
Guys, I'm sure you do have the time. We love talking about nerdy stuff. So come on in and hit that subscribe button for the Nerdy Fans Podcast and the Gleeful Talkshow with your wonderful hosts here, Glee, and for the Nerdy Fans Podcast, herself and myself, Ray, right? So thank you so much, all of you, for listening, and hope to see you next time.
Thanks, Ray, and thanks everyone for listening.